we're live.
Thank you very much. So colleagues, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority regular board meeting of August the 19th. And we'll begin by respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. The agenda has been circulated. I'll take a motion to approve that from Sherry, seconded by Carl. All those in favor? Carried. So based on that agenda, colleagues, is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest?
No.
Madam Clerk, I do not see any. We have no delegations tonight, so we'll move immediately to the minutes of June the 17th, 2021. I'll start with a motion to receive or to approve, I guess, from Kim and seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion, colleagues, on those minutes? I do not see any. All those in favor? Those minutes are adopted. And is there any business arising out of those minutes? I don't believe so. Okay, moving right along, we'll go to reports for approval. And the first one is the contract award report on the repairs to the Warsaw Dam. And Dan, did you want to speak to this?
Sure. So we put out a tender. It closed on the 3rd of August. We received 4 bids through the prescribed process. There was a 5th bid that was provided outside of that process, and based on the terms of the request for quotations, we were not able to accept it, and we didn't, and we returned it unopened. The 4 bids before you are listed there. The lowest bid is a company called Clearwater Structures. They're out of the Ajax or Pickering area. They do a lot of heavy civil contract work. They're familiar to DM Wills, our consultants on this, and they do very good work. Stick to budget, stick to timelines, and deliver on the specifications. So we're recommending that we award the contract to do the repairs at the Warsaw Auxiliary Dam and the small repair to the Warsaw Back Dam for the price listed here. Just on the funding and financing of this, you should know that we budgeted $323,000. This work plus our engineering costs come up to $328,000. So we were slightly over budget here. But on the revenue side, we received the benefiting levy that was assessed, and we did not get all of the WECI money we were hoping for. So we're short about just under $14,000. We're able to bridge that difference. We have a savings from the contract awarded for the Hope Mill Dam, and we have an allocation that was set aside for replacing hydrometric equipment, and all our stations are functioning, and we don't need to replace any equipment this year. So between those 2 little pots of money at $19,000, that should easily cover our about a $14,000 difference. So we're recommending the award of this contract to Clearwater Structures.
Thank you, Dan. Questions, Carl?
Yeah, I would recommend the recommendation, but I have a question as well.
Yep.
Okay, so Carl's going to move and then we'll come back to him for a question. Does somebody want to second it? Gary seconded. Okay, Carl, go ahead.
Just for the information of the members of the board, would you have the numbers, the capital portion paid for by Duro Dummer for this project? Or will be paid for?
Yeah, I don't have it in.
Okay.
Well, Duro Dummer would have paid half of the 323, so 161,500.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? Yes, Kim.
And just a quick question, Mr. Chair, to Dan. The hydrometric equipment, if something were to break down, would it just come out of general reserve then? Or is this something carried in the budget from year to year for that equipment?
Yeah, we've started to build in a $10,000 contingency allowance for this. And if we have a piece of equipment that goes offline, let's say in October, November, we would look at in-year savings to repair that. And you'll see later in the financial reports, we're running a bit of a surplus here right now. So we should be good.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you.
We're 8 months through the year without any breakdowns. So
Yeah.
the odds are with us.
Don't jinx it now. Ryan?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Is there contingency funds built into the quote? Like, is there a potential that, that surplus or the extra on this thing could be, come back as if the contingency isn't touched, or is there no contingency?
There is no contingency offered to the contractor. That's a fixed price.
Okay. Oh, it's fixed price. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess he would, if he has savings, he retains the savings.
Okay. Additional questions, colleagues? Okay, I don't see any. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? That is carried. Very good. We'll go to some reports for information. We'll start with the first one, an outline of some of the FedDev funding that you either have or are in the process of applying for, Dan?
Yes. So we're seeking out, FedDev announced 2 programs in early July. One is a community revitalization program. The other is a tourism relief program. Not-for-profits like Orca are eligible. And there are more programs where municipalities are eligible than conservation authorities. So this is one where we're eligible. We jumped on this and threw in a handful of applications for the July 23rd close date, and we're still working on one more that has a kind of a open submission, no close dates. I wanted you to know that these are big asks. They are very excessive asks. We potentially could do each one of these with a bit smaller budget, but we're asking for a big ask. If we're fortunate to get funding on the community revitalization, that's 75% dollars, up to a maximum of 750,000. So in essence, they'd fund $1 million worth of projects to the tune of 750,000. The tourism relief fund doesn't really have that. It could be actually 100% funding. So we just got everything out. If we're fortunate and some of these projects are picked up, I'll return to the board, obviously, with a ways and means of finding our 25% and seeking your approval to proceed. On the very specific one on the Jackson Creek, we have started drafting up a fundraising campaign, and we have already a submission into the local Rotary Club, and we're fleshing out the rest of that campaign and where the asks are. But I wanted simply to alert the board of the opportunity, what we're chasing. And the other contextual piece here is we're really chasing capital work for recreational facilities, which are not likely to be mandated or core things in our go forward scenario. And we would have to chase grants and money outside of a levy going forward. But they've been longstanding items on our asset management plan. If we can knock those off, then we basically take a lot of pressure out of the asset management plan going forward. Anyways, I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Questions about any of those? I think there's four different initiatives that are being proposed. I had a question, Dan, and my memory is not always that good, but you're looking for funding for washrooms at Warsaw. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
Did we not just but a few years back build a brand new facility for washrooms there?
You can never have enough washrooms. But anyways, no, we're looking to replace 6 outhouses that are in the actual camping area. And we're not, I don't know if we'll get money for that because it's behind a gate where you have to pay to use. So that might not be high on their approval list. But yes, there is a new washroom facility at the day use area that was put in place 7 years ago. There's the comfort station just down the road from the normal camping area that was put in about 10 or 12 years ago. And we're looking to replace the 6 outhouses that are scattered amongst the 54 campsites with 1 unit.
Okay, so we're not replacing what we did.
No.
Okay. And the other question, I would assume that the big ask and the one you'd really like to get is the Jackson Creek one, right? So,
Yes.
because if we don't get that money, we're gonna have to find a way to do it at some point in the not too distant future, right?
It'll take a long time to do it without that money.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Any other questions, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Dan. With regard to the washrooms, it looks like the washrooms that are there, Dan, may not be AODA compliant, and the proposed new washrooms will meet that legislation. So that's important that the authority work towards that objective in all of our facilities. You're right, it is a big ask, and of course, with that big ask, the 25% portion that we'll be expected to come up with becomes bigger also. But you do have a rather vague, but you do have a plan there how that may be addressed, and I'll look forward to hearing more details about that should become successful. The question, Dan, is that the FedDev has been around and providing funding opportunities for quite some time. Are these new funds, or are these simply a different spin on other funds that perhaps we've tried to tap into before? This one does say it's designed to support pandemic recovery, so from that perspective, it's new. But community revitalization program, I think that one's been around for a while, has it not?
As I understand it, they may have repackaged or repurposed some existing funding, but they've certainly branded it as a source of funding to help communities in the tourism sector cope with the impacts of the COVID pandemic over the last 2 years.
Okay,
So
thank.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, whatever they did behind the scenes, I'm not really sure, but it's being presented to us as new programming.
Has the authority been successful in funding from FedDev in the past?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I'm not aware how we funded how we were supported for the new boardwalk over the Lang Dam. That was a federal program of some sort, and I don't know if it was a FedDev program.
Did I see somebody else's hand go up? I thought it did. No? Oh, yeah, Brian?
Sorry, couldn't get off mute. I don't know if there's an answer to the question, but when is the anticipation of when you'd hear back from these? Dan?
I suspect now it won't be before September 20th. I don't think there'll be any funding announcements through the election period.
Right.
And I don't expect to be an announcement prior to swearing in of a new government. When this came out in early July, they were all shovels ready, get on right away and all that stuff. But perhaps their expectation was to get on with it before the election call. But the other end of this is the program funds are available to the end of March 2023. So it's a 2-year program. And so that actually gives us up to 3 fiscal years to do all this stuff from a budgeting perspective, so, if we're successful.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to receive that report. From Carl, seconded by Paula. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one is our annual report from the Community Foundation of Greater Peterborough. Dan, you want to speak to that?
Sure, it's just a very quick information item for the board. As you know, when the Autonomy Foundation wound up its affairs, it transferred $1,002,000 to the Community Foundation, established an endowment. for us. Minimally, we get 3.5% of the value of the fund on an annual basis. The fund is currently valued at $1,040,000, 47 or 49,000. And the foundation's board chose to grant 5% this year, which and our money is in two camps. Our money is in some GICs, which is on a different formula. And then our money is in the pooled investment fund, which is on the 5% formula. So we received 43,000, we budgeted for 35, and it's worked out well for us, I would say. So.
Okay, questions on that, colleagues? Carl?
You're on mute, Carl.
I'm sorry, the decision we made a few years ago to go this route was a sound one. So it's a good foundation, and we're helping the community as well.
Thank you, Carl. Any other comments? So Dan, I had a question. So this next year will be the last year that we will get paid interest from our investments because they all come due in 2022. So after that, it'll just simply be the dividend from the fund, which, if I understand correctly, we're guaranteed 3.5%. It was 5% this year. So for budgeting purposes, you're able to essentially say that we have a base amount every year of about 37,000. I'm just doing it roughly. It might be 36 something. Carl could probably do it in his head in a second. But so we have a guaranteed revenue stream from this, and our fees on this are is just 0.65% when you put it all together. So that's a pretty good price for a management fee. So I tend to agree with Carl that it was the right thing to do. The one thing I noticed, though, if you look at the financial statement, and I don't know whether we have any concern with this as a board, colleagues, and it's not a short-term issue. We only had $100 donation income because what we've tended to do is taken what we had, our success from the past, and put it in an endowment, and we'll benefit from that. But we really haven't focused on raising money generally since we've done that. And I'm just wondering, Dan, is that something that we would want to return to at some point if we do want to try to see whether fundraising is something that we want to do?
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to go back to the beginning, just clarify something. The GICs mature in 2022. The payment we will receive in 2023 will be reflective of the 2022 closure. So it really won't be to 2024 that all our money, the money we receive, will all be based back on the pooled resources. But we did. I don't have it off the top, but we did receive close to $10,000 in other donations last year to us, directly to us. And we use that money to do two things: support our education programs and support some trails work on our conservation land. So, and we haven't openly gone out and either say to people, you can send to us or you can send to our endowment, nor have we taken the donations to us and just sent them over to the endowment. So I guess that's a conversation for the future. I would say in the short term, we would take every dollar we could get by way of donation and have it ready for Jackson Creek Trail versus investing back into the endowment. Anyways, we've got probably competing demands for any donation we receive, and what I do when people ask me, can we make a donation? I tell them there's two spots. You can donate directly to us and we'll give you a receipt, or you can donate to the community foundation, to our endowment fund, which we will benefit from over time. And people donate to us, not so much to the community foundation. So
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, so can we have a motion to receive that? Oh, Kim, did you have a question or motion?
I can move to receive it, Mr. Chair, but the point that you just brought up, I was wondering, with our account with our investment with the Community Foundation, Dan, I know that some of our local groups, like the Consumption and Treatment Site right now, are doing a fundraising campaign for renovations. So the Community Foundation is handling that. So you donate through the Community Foundation for that particular project. So would you handle it through the Orca office, or would you use the Community Foundation to do that fundraising?
For the Jackson Creek Trail?
For the Jackson Creek Trail,
Yeah.
as a project.
Yeah, we've only contemplated it through the Orca office. But if you go to the, only the Orca office. That's all we've thought about today.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So you're gonna move it, Sherry. I think you had your hand up to second that, or did you have a question? You're moving that, right? Or you're seconding that?
One or the other.
Okay, good. Okay, we have a mover and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if Ryan may have had his hand up with a
Sorry,
question
Ryan?
prior to the motion.
I had a quick question. I don't know whether it's relevant at this point, though. It was just, can we donate to that foundation ourselves? Like if we have a surplus on something? Like I know typically we would go back into like an asset reserve or something like that. But I mean, if there happens to be a surplus, could it not be shuffled over here?
Yes, the
Yeah.
authority can make a decision to move any amount of money it receives. I would, and then that, you can either keep it on book as accumulated surplus, dedicate it on book as a restricted reserve, or you can make a donation to our foundation. And maybe, without getting overly complicated, maybe you would limit that to the amount of donations we receive from independent people. We just channel them through to that. But yeah, it'd have to be
I
transparent.
think that's maybe we make that conversation for another day. I was just curious whether that was even a possibility.
Yeah, they'll receive money from anybody, and they'll receipt it appropriately. And naturally, a tax receipt doesn't do us any good, but a receipt is needed for our books, so we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, we have the report, the trail proposal report. Any questions about that? Sherry?
Thank you, through you. I just wondered, do we have a map that shows exactly where all this would go through, Dan?
Not exactly. We have a generic map, and I think Karen's going to just put it up for us here, hopefully.
And
When
I'm
you
more
actually,
of a visual person, so.
yeah. So this comes right from the proposal that the Kawartha Land Trust has put together. It's what do you call the case for investment, I guess it's called. And the actual route is not known. They know where they want to go through on their property. Jesse was actually out with their representative today around the trails on our property, which is just a little bit, our property would be just where it says Clear Lake, just to the left of that. And then we have properties down at Young's Point. They have to still get permission to cross other properties. So they haven't got a specific trail left out, but this is the conceptual line that if we had they had a property ownership map underneath it, you would see that it goes through the KLT properties and the Orca property, and then it goes through others for which they don't have approval yet. So this is the conceptual map.
Thank you, Dan. Sherry, I've lost you off my screen. Did you have a follow-up or?
No, I think it would be nice if it can be accomplished, and I'll move to receive the report.
Okay, thank you, Sherry.
Thanks, Karen.
Anybody want? I've lost sight there. Now I've got people back. Okay, who else wants to comment? Kim, go ahead.
I just wondered it mentioned that there was some minor rerouting to do of our portion, Dan, and through the chair, I was wondering, will KLT through their fundraising be covering the cost of that rerouting, or is that something the authority has to look after?
No, no, thank you. That'll be KLT's responsibilities. That'll be one of the permitted activities under the trail license agreement. Minor routing with approval from Orca on the actual location. So, and KLT is also prepared to raise some money to improve the parking lot that's there. And it's not the parking lot at the marina. Ours is a little push in the side of the road that's grown in desperately, and KLT says they've got somebody coming up that way with a bit of a loader and can do some cleaning and leveling and a few new, they're prepared to do all of that. So that's the beauty of this. We don't have to transfer land. We still own the land, but similar to Haroldtown and the trail users there, the volunteer group, in this case, KLT, will make sure the trail is in good condition, make any adjustments that are required, and put a little bit of effort, money, and sweat equity into just minor repairs to the basic infrastructure. We get a little bit of glory because our properties are recognized, but we don't have to bear the costs. So.
Well, that's great. This is such a good partnership, and I hadn't even heard of the one wildlife area, the Heber Rogers. So maybe it'll give them a little more life and get the community in there using them. It looks like a really good project. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Kim, other comments? Ryan?
But through you, Chair, I'm kind of assuming just because it's KLT, but it doesn't say anywhere what sort of trail this is. Like, is it a passive use trail? Is it an ATV trail? Is it...
No, it's a passive use trail. It's not an ATV trail. So what would be the best one that it's not even developed like the Jackson Creek Trail with a finished bed and everything. It's a trail through the woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I even ask my question, I just want to make sure procedurally, unless I missed it, I think Sherry moved the motion, but I don't know that we ever got a seconder. Did we?
Probably not. You want to do that?
I'll second it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, I hope I'm stating the obvious here. The report says that that the new trail upon its completion will be maintained by the Peterborough Trail Builders Association. And we currently have an agreement apparently with this group to repair and maintain several other trails in authority-owned lands. So this must be working well. These folks must do a good job. We have little or no trouble with them. That's more of a question than a statement.
Yeah, so I give you an example there. I think it's under discussion. It's 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. That's the example of something we're already doing with Trail at Haroldtown. That works really well. They have a work night once every 3 weeks or so. They do the repairs. They do some adjustments that need to be adjusted. They take care of branches and hazardous limbs and sticks and stones that are in the way, and they really do a good job of that. We also have a similar arrangement with the Peterborough Nordic Club to maintain cross-country skate trail on Jackson Creek Trail, and that's a seasonal thing. But they track the trail. They deal with brush that's in front of the skiers and clean it back. They do litter pickup. So it's over time we've morphed into this kind of a model. When I first arrived, we used to try to manage volunteers, and then the volunteers always became pretty autonomous. So it's the same thing that happened at the Hope Mill with the volunteers there, and the same thing that happened to bikers at Haroldtown. So what we've done is we moved them all to a model, say, if you want to be autonomous, then our relationship is through a license or through a lease. And you get insurance, you get coverage, you can run your own affairs within some white lines. And so we get the benefit of all that volunteer labor, all that independent organization of effort. For us, there's insurance coverage in place, so liabilities are managed. And our relationship is through an agreement, not through us trying to manage 20 volunteers on a Saturday morning. And for our capacity, for our sense of humor and our attention span, this really works well for us. They work well. They've been working well.
Very good. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of receiving the report? Carried. Okay, Dan, your monthly report, is anything in there you want to highlight?
Yeah, just two things. We continue to be told that the regulations, phase one regulations that we reviewed and commented on back in June are supposed to be released by the end of the month. I understand Minister Piccini told an AMO crowd and reconfirmed that today, or I understood that, heard about that today, that he did that in the last few days at an AMO session. So we await those. I guess the only two other things, just there's two staffing matters here. One is Jennifer has left us. Jennifer's taken on a position at Trent University. She left on July 16th. We've attempted to replace her. We didn't get a sufficient number of applications, so I've held off for about 3 more months. And Don Allen is acting in Jennifer's capacity, and we reassigned some of the responsibilities as well. I, for one, for instance, are assuming anything to do with floodplain mapping, and Meredith has taken over all the things dealing with the monitoring projects we have with the city, and Dawn is just focused only on plan review and permitting. So we're going to go on that model to the end of December, and hopefully before then recruit somebody. The other item here is we had one of our staff member, a young woman, pass away unexpectedly a few weeks ago now. She was a gatehouse attendant at Warsaw. She'd been with us since 2018. She had been off sick on a medical leave for the last month, and I guess things deteriorated fairly quickly and unbeknownst to us, and we only found out about things worsening when we heard she had passed. So that was a bit upsetting. Well, that was upsetting for us. It was upsetting for the staff out of Warsaw. We communicated that to them. We provided our employee assistance program contact information for all our staff, and we've talked to people, see how they're doing with this. And on behalf of the authority, we've made a donation to the Peterborough Humane Society in her memory. Megan loved her pets, so we thought that was an appropriate thing to do. So those are the things I would highlight on my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. If I could just add on to that just a bit. So yes, Minister Piccini did make that commitment. The challenge is the way they're doing this is in 3 steps of getting us regulations. So there's a phase 1, which is part of the regs that we need. There's a phase 2, which has additional regs that deal. The biggest one that we'd be interested in as municipal politicians is it would establish the minimum levy. So that is what overhead you're able to charge as part of your mandatory services. That's in phase 2. That's not even come out for comments. And then there are regulations to deal with our Section 28, and that comes from a different ministry. That comes out of MNRF. And so I am meeting with Minister Piccini on Tuesday, and we'll have that chance to point this out, because in the phase 1 regulations, that at least the draft regulations, we are required to do an inventory of what will be mandatory and non-mandatory, to consult with our member municipalities about that list, and then to provide the minister with a Gantt chart on how we plan to go about implementation. And that all supposed to be completed by December 31st. So although they're still projecting implementation to come in place at the end of 2022, the regulations call for a number of activities to take place. So we're down to 16 weeks, in practical terms, 14 weeks, because it's going to have to be the middle of December that it's done. And that's without the benefit of the phase 2 regs. So whether we're able to do it is problematic. So I'll be meeting with the minister to have that conversation on behalf of Conservation Ontario. So we'll see how that goes. I wanted to ask the question, Dan, we're still on track to, assuming the public health situation remains stable, and that's never a guarantee, for a return to in-person meetings in October, if that's Still your plan?
We're planning for that.
Okay. And people coming back into our office, you're looking at that gradually over the next 60 days, again, pending.
Yeah, yes, correct. We've removed the restriction on the number of staff in this office at any one time. So staff are starting to spend part of their day here. We are sorting out a different counter for the front, and we're actually repurposing our boardroom. So we'll be looking at board meetings at a different location. And yeah, over the next, so we're indicating staff they can start to come work now, but probably around Thanksgiving or shortly after, we'll be starting to open up the office for the public. Therefore, we'll have to have staff scheduled in here.
Okay. And I'm going to raise one other issue because I suspect somebody was planning to raise it under other business, but I'll raise it under this report. I just wanted to note that you've changed the format for the board reports. And I think a couple of colleagues may want to speak to that in some of the in how that's worked. And so for me personally, I found it helpful to have it that way. It's a little easier for me. I have pretty good broadband access right where I'm sitting right here, so I'm able to maneuver things fairly well. But if you're trying to maneuver stuff around, I could see where it might be a little bit more challenging than the other way. One of the things we do at the hospital board is we have the option as members, we can download the whole thing, and we're not using up
Bandwidth.
broadband when we're going back and forth. So anyways, I'm just wondering if any colleagues had any comments on the new format, good, bad, or indifferent. Joe, why don't you start now?
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, it works fine. It took me a little bit to figure out how best to use it. Sometimes the broadband connectivity is no more challenging than the knowledge about how to manipulate around these programs. And but I figured it out. It's fine. I do prefer, and I don't know whether this is an option or not with this, but I do prefer the split screen format, so I can follow the agenda and click on the links at the same time. And I just find that easier. And it may not be possible, or it may be very, very easy. I'd be interested to know from staff what the answer to that is.
Okay. Carl had a comment, and then when everybody's made their comment, I'll go back to Dan to answer the question. So, Carl?
Sure. I talked to Dan about getting the whole document in one PDF. The reason for that, normally what I do is download it and put it on my desktop on another computer so that I can use it as such, because most nights, like tonight, the internet speed is not too bad, but there's other nights that we have difficulties. So if I'm trying to keep on the Zoom call and then I'm also downloading something on the other computer, it's using the same link. And but having it on the desktop, I can access the reports fairly quickly. So hopefully that wasn't too much extra work, Dan, for your people. But
Well, from where I sit, it was no work at all, but.
okay.
There you go, an honest person. So any other comments about the format? Kim? You're still muted, Kim. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble with the unmute. So I with Carl, I prefer everything to be in one agenda. I don't mind the appendices being separate, because I think that just from a speed thing, I think in total there was about 29 files that had to be downloaded. And I don't know, and I didn't contact staff if there's a way of viewing, but when I went into the board area and selected something, I couldn't view it. I had to download it and then open it on the desktop. So say for the closed, where there were a lot of appendices, I had to create separate folders because there was multiple files for the closed session, just to keep them separate so I could recognize them. And so I just found it was a little more time consuming to organize. Now, if there is a way of viewing through the website rather than downloading, I couldn't find that option. And I just thought I'd wait till after the meeting and circle back to staff and see if it's possible to do that instead of having to have everything on my desktop.
Mike, did you
So
have a comment?
that was it. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I will go ahead with, agree with Joe. I like a split screen as well. We do most of ours on split screen. It allows me to watch the agenda and open packages at the same time. And, but I'm not fussy. Whatever's going to work will work. With the split screen, when you go and open it, it downloads it onto my computer anyway. So that eliminates using the broadband during the meeting if you've opened the files beforehand to prepare for the meeting anyway. So, but I do like the split screen like Joe.
Okay. Anybody else? Don't see anybody. So Dan, there's some comments out there. You'll work with folks and staff will work with folks. We'll refine it and get something that works as best we can for everybody. So
Yeah,
but
thank you.
we appreciate you and the staff making the effort to make it as easy as possible for us as board members. So thank you for that.
Okay, thanks. Well, I won't embarrass myself and try to answer any questions here. But Karen is listening intently, and she will. She has some thoughts on how to deal with both the downloadable thing and the split screen, either the provision of a split screen version or helping everyone learn how to do split screen on their computer. So I think there's two ways of solving that problem, but yeah, continuous improvement. We're just trying to embrace the technology and the functionality of the technology, and we'll make it so it's accessible to you. I think Joe had another question.
Did you have another comment?
I did, yeah. Well, I'm going to embarrass myself, I'm sure, because generally nothing strikes fear into my heart like hearing somebody say we're going to a new computer program, and it's really easy. But I'm not sure with this one here. There was 2 links to the regular board meeting. The first one, when I clicked on it, it really was just display the agenda, and then you had to individually click each link to access the number of reports. And I wasn't a real big fan of that, but I went through it. The second time I went in, I noticed there's a second link to the board member, and that's the one that I'm on now. And I found when you click on it, then I just simply scroll through report after report. It's in chronological order, so it's a lot better.
Yeah.
And it's fine if that's the way we have to use it. That's what we have to use. I'm okay with that. But
Okay, well,
for the split screen if it's an option.
Yeah. So let me just explain. We sent out the version we sent out on Thursday was the agenda with links, and Carl said he had a challenge with downloading and his capacity on the internet in the past. A one complete package that could be downloadable to solve Carl's problem. So if you got back on, let's say Tuesday or today or yesterday, you would have seen two different formats for the same content. And that was just our way of trying to ensure everybody had access for this meeting. So.
Good. Thumbs up from Joe. So somebody want to move receipt of Dan's CAO secretary report? Joe and Mike, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, the quarterly financial activity in section 28 permits. Anybody have any questions about any of that material? Carl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 40 talks about the permits. And I guess there's major, minor, and routine. Now, our fee structures are a little bit different than that. They are minor, intermediate, and major. Does minor on the summary report include intermediate and major, or pardon me, minor and intermediate, or how does that go? Or
Yeah, I'll have to give you, I'll have to come back to you with
sure,
a response on that.
that's okay.
The routine is comes from the standards with the Conservation Ontario timeline monitoring standards.
Okay,
We would call those letters of authorization. They're actually below the permit. I don't believe a fee is charged for those.
okay.
So I'll, but I'll get that clarified. I think
I can
that's,
call you, Dan.
yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
correct answer. But
No problem.
okay.
Any other comments on that? Dan, there's a couple of things in the work plan that probably that have not been completed yet, but probably make sense not to complete until we have the new regs, because they could alter the way that we have to do them. So I'm assuming that's the reason why we've just delayed doing them. For instance, the management plans for the 6 conservation areas, we're going to have regs that tell us how to do that. So
That's right. We believe that the standards that we will have to do that to will change from what we've been doing in the past. So that's one good example.
and on the
Sorry, the other one there is a review of our fee schedule. We really ought to see what the provincial regs on levies and fees looks like before we do that review.
yeah, that makes sense. Joe, you were going to intervene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Dan, in the report, it mentions that the tree planting program this year is a tremendous success with, I think, a record number, if I'm not mistaken, of trees, approximately 30% over last year.
Yeah.
Which, if I do my math correctly, is between 3,000 and 4,000 trees more. Is there a 100 and some orders and over 11,000 trees? Is there a maximum number of trees that we can get whereby if we just got to say, sorry, folks, we're full?
Well, we hit that wall this year. We just ran out of, we had more requests than we were able to fill. And it just because the nurseries ran out of stock and just because everybody had free time to plant trees this year, beyond just Orca related customers. So, yeah. So there's no fixed number. We give them a tentative number every year around what we might be looking for, kind of a cap and kind of a contract. And then we fill them on an order by order basis. And then we ask them, do you have any more? And they'll either up us or tell us we don't in this species, or we're tapped out. So this year we got a complete tap out.
Is there repercussions if we order more than we end up needing, Dan? No?
No, it's like a reservation you can cancel type of thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, we only pay, sorry, the commitment is only on confirmed orders, where we're only on confirmed orders, so.
Any other comments, colleagues? Okay, I had a question on the permits. So you're showing 35 enforcement files. I'm just curious how that compares to previous. If we look at this from the, I guess, the second quarter of 20 or the second quarter of 19, would we see something similar?
Yeah, we've been around 3 to 4 dozen over the last, I can say 5 quarters. 2 years ago, we went anywhere from 8 to 10 or 8 to 12. So we're triple that anyways, tripled almost 4 times that. And I think, well, I think there's a whole bunch of people watching their neighbors do stuff and complain to us and other things like that. So non-compliance, I think, is just a challenge, and it's been that jump is a COVID phenomena.
Okay. And the last question I have at this point, and I know you can't give a definitive answer, but to the best of your knowledge, we're going to hit our budget targets. We'll break even for the year. So far, nothing coming up that would send off alarm bells.
Well, I don't really like leaving money on the table, so I'll be honest about that right now. No, our revenue, right now, we're ahead in permits. We've got about 75% of our revenue after 6 months. Our campgrounds as of today are at 102% of last year's number, which is equal to our average 5 years. So we're starting to stream ahead now on our campgrounds. Day use at Warsaw is still low because the caves are closed. Retail sales are picking up at the campgrounds, but a bit below target. And obviously, we're not doing canoe rentals this year. So on those non-levy, non-grant kinds of revenues, it's robust enough. It's in excess of where we planned for, and our costs are a bit below where we budgeted for. So if you just look at that budget, we're I think 48% of planned revenue and 43% of planned expenditures at the end of 6 months. So that's indicating a surplus at this point, and it's indicating a surplus. But I think if we got to do some renovations to the office around the counter and stuff that wasn't budgeted for, so we'll consume some of that. If we're fortunate enough to get all that trail money, Fed Dev money, I would look to requesting the ability to use some of that surplus for that purpose. We are starting the 2 consulting contracts for which we were going to pay for them out of the drawn reserve. So we could remove the need for the drawn reserve as well. And then we're also carrying a loan on the comfort station at Warsaw. At some point we pay for that by levy. So at some point we might not be able to pay for that anymore. So maybe we should think about trying to retire that loan this year, next year. It's around 40,000. So there's lots of things we can deploy our money to, yes, so if we do that, we will come in on budget.
What you're telling me is you're going to find a way to spend the
do
surplus.
anything, we will come in with a surplus.
Well, that's good.
The way I view it is the board is authorized to spend up a certain dollar, and I'm going to do that. So
Yeah.
how's that?
We can see your determination in that respect. That's good. Kim?
Yeah, good.
And through the chair to you, Dan, is there any pool of funding for conservation authorities for making the office safe to come back for COVID and public health guideline improvements? A lot of other municipal and even local businesses have been able to tap into some funding for that. Do we kind of sit outside of eligibility?
Yeah, none that we are aware of at this point.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
In fact, none of the recovery money that the province has sent out last year or this year, CAs are not eligible in any way for any of the recovery money that's been available to municipalities.
Okay. Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to receive the quarterly financial and activity report from Gary, seconded by Paula. All those in favor? Carried. We have correspondence and media coverage. Anybody want to talk about anyone in particular? I just wanted to mention, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. There was just one that I wanted to ask some questions about. I'm just checking my notes here. So which one it was on the agenda? It was a media release from Conservation Ontario tackling climate change with $9 million in federal funding. And I guess my question was, I guess it's number 8 on the correspondence list. That looks like an opportunity specific to Conservation Ontario, or is that $9 million going to be something that individual CAs can look to Conservation Ontario to tap into?
Yeah, it's allocated through Conservation Ontario, conservation authorities. we afforded the opportunity to use some of that money.
And do we have any projects that we're interested in that might fit that criteria, Dan?
Yeah, we do have a few things in our climate change action plan. Meredith, I'm sorry, I don't have the details for you. Meredith has been looking at some of those things and connecting it to this opportunity.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Chair, I noticed at the end of that, there was the Nature Smart Climate Solutions Fund as well. It didn't really explain how it ties into this funding, if this funding comes out of that fund, or if that's that $631 million 10-year fund to restore and enhance wetlands, peatlands, and grasslands, and to store and capture carbon. If that's also something that's available outside of Conservation Ontario for us to apply for restoration work.
The way it was explained to me, and I may not have it totally right. So it's a pot of money that the federal government put aside. They went out for expressions of interest for what they call a quick start access to the fund. And Conservation Ontario was one of those groups that said, if you're looking to get some money out quickly, we have the ability to do that. We have conservation authorities that suggested some types of projects. And the federal government took up Conservation Ontario on that. And so this is a quick start to that fund. There will be other opportunities. Well, I guess it depends on what either a successor government or a new government would do with that funding. But it was a quick start group of money. It's a really positive announcement. It will allow conservation authorities to do some really good work across the province. I should point out, because I don't think it does in the press release, that it is not 100% funding. So you'll need partners to help you. Now, it speaks of in kind as part of the contribution. The details, I haven't seen them yet, and I suspect anything with the federal government is essentially on hold until after the 20th of September. So
I was curious in follow-up if the bigger pot, the Nature Smart Climate Fund, if a municipality applied for that rather than the Conservation Authority, then you could bring the Conservation Authority in as a partner. Wondering if that's an option too for that particular fund.
Let me try to find out for you, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know the answer. Okay, anybody else on correspondence or media? Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just throw this out there for whatever benefit it might be. There's a number of pieces of correspondence between the Conservation Authority and Minister Piccini. And Dave Piccini is the MPP for the riding that Autonomy South Monaghan is in. I believe that we have an excellent working relationship with Minister Piccini, and we communicate regularly. I mean, quite regularly. So if there's anything that I can do for the authority when you're trying to set something up or arrange something with Minister Piccini, if you let me know, I may be able to assist. I certainly don't think it can hurt. But so I'll just throw that out there. If it can be of some benefit, then I'd be happy to help.
It sounds like a lunch at your place, Joe. Beside the lake.
Whatever it takes.
No, that's a great offer, Joe. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, somebody want to move receipt? Both of those, Carl and Kim, all those in favor? That's carried. So, any other businesses that anybody wants to bring up? I don't see any. So, that completes our open agenda. So I need a motion to move into closed. Moved by Paula, seconded by Brian. All those in favor? Okay.